Hello and welcome to episode 37 of the Alfa Romeo Driver Podcast, brought to you by the Alfa Romeo Owners Club. I'm Guy Swarbrick, and with me this afternoon I have Bianco Motorsports Future Alfa Racer winner Colin Cunniffe and Bianco Motorsports Supremo Paul Plant. Good afternoon, gentlemen.
Hello.
Afternoon, Guy. How you doing?
I'm very well. So we're here at Snetterton for Colin to receive his prize. We'll talk to Colin in a minute, but just wanted to start, Paul, with just a little bit of a sense from you as to how this idea came about and how it all came together.
Simply, I hadn't really done a lot of sim racing. Saw that the Owners Club were doing the championship and decided that I wanted to join in and have some fun. And it kind of surprised me, actually, how good some of the people were. I mean, I wasn't expecting to be good, but how quick they were, their racecraft and various things. And once the first season was over, they were looking at prizes, if you like, for a following season and maybe doing something a bit bigger and meaningful. And I contacted you and said, why don't we do something if it's big enough and long enough so that it's a really worthwhile, lengthy championship where the winner can get in a race car and see if they can carry it across.
That's a fairly brave move, given that there were. I think most of the people who were competing had done the odd track day, but there was nobody eligible who'd been in a race car before.
No, absolutely, and with what happened at the last race meeting, where the brand new chap put the car on its roof within 6 laps of getting onto the track, it's that. That moment, it kind of brought it home that, oh my God, we're going to have another complete novice who's just done a few laps on an ARDS course to get his license in the car again in a couple of weeks. But, the difference really was that, from the sim stuff, if I was going to feel confident about anybody exceeding and doing well and having less fears, it would be Colin. I've been driving against him in the sims for over a year now. And it's not often that he makes a mistake or has a crash in the sim. And I was hoping that we'd have one of those same weekends where he didn't do that too. And it's, here we are. And it's all been brilliant, actually.
Yeah, we'll talk about the weekend in a minute. So, Colin, there was a bit of a connection with the Alfa Racing Championship that got you involved in the first place, wasn't there?
I was went to school with David, and it was basically a Facebook post he shared about the championship. And I just commented saying that it was a shame that it was just for members only. I'd pretty much given up on sim racing for a while, like new baby and stuff like that. So the time, I wasn't really able to put the time in like what I wanted, like how competitive I was before. And this was just something fun that came up. So I just thought, and then yourself said, do you want to just have a go, make up the numbers effectively? And loved racing against the guys and just got involved in it, and I was and then just loved the community, became an Alfa Romeo Owners Club member, and just try to get involved in everything. And now the next point now is to try and get an actual Alfa Romeo.
Yeah. So there was certainly never a sense that you were just making up the numbers from the first race, really, and it was. Until the last round or two, it was pretty close, wasn't it? I mean, there were 3 of you at the front of the championship.
Yeah.
Matt obviously is a seasoned Alfa racer, so he wasn't eligible for the prize. But the battle between you and Ted was pretty intense.
Yeah, it was really. I mean, like me and Ted have been fighting each other for a lot of years now, in previous championships and things like that. So we did have previous. So it was really intense. And I was able to push each other on, and because I think if I wasn't in it, then Ted would have walked it, no bother probably. So it was good to at least give him a challenge, and thankfully. But I mean, it was frustrating that I didn't beat Matt, because I would have liked to have won it overall to justify.
But he is, as we all know, an alien.
Yeah,
he's ridiculous. The man is just ridiculous.
Absolutely.
You talked about the fact that you've been racing Ted for years. Talk us through a little bit about your virtual racing background.
I started my first PC. My dad bought my first PC, and on there, the first game I pretty much played was Grand Prix 2, Jeff Crammond's Grand Prix 2. And ever since then I was just addicted to racing. Even though I didn't watch it much because in those days, I'm that old, but there was only ever one TV in the house and I never ever got to watch what I wanted, so I never ever really got to watch motorsport. So this was my only way actually getting cars round. So even back then I didn't know much what was going on in the F1 world. And then just developed on from Grand Prix 2, and then so I got on. I just sort of stopped playing. It's because I like gaming so much. Whenever a new game came out, it was just sort of right. Call of Duty, that was the big one at the time. Before it got really mainstream, is what it is now. So racing kind of went to the side, and then I think there was another game called Trackmania Nations that we always played. I must have played that for 2 years straight, and then eventually some of my mates started doing this sim called Live for Speed, and it was just, I think it was only 3 guys that made it, but the physics model was just really spot on. And then just after that, I got addicted. They bought a steering wheel, just kept doing it, and then from there, they moved from Live for Speed, and then they started doing iRacing, this thing, and then I was just like, how much do I have to pay for a subscription? And I was just like, oh no. And then I tried it, and then that was it. So for 10 years, pretty much, I've been doing iRacing. And then from having just a tiny monitor with a steering wheel on a desk with a normal office chair that every time I braked I went backwards, I eventually got another Logitech wheel, built a stand for my pedals that held my seat on. I just lifted the seat up, put it in, and then it couldn't go backwards anymore. And then over time just built upgraded everything as it's went on, and now it's just big massive rig, Cobra seat, medium mid-range steering wheel.
On your podcast, on your feed, it looks like you've got all the gear, that's for sure. When you watch them back.
The next thing, after this weekend, it's probably any money's going to go in racing now, but not in some stuff. But
well, your wife won't hear this for at least 2 weeks.
Can we leave it till after Brands Hatch?
Absolutely, yeah. Let me try and get that sorted first. But that was always the next one, was to try and get something like hydraulic pedals, hydraulic steering and stuff. But you
get all that in a real race car.
Exactly, yeah. So that might change everything.
So the original plan with the prize was to do the opening round of the championship.
Yep.
Obviously, COVID put paid to that. But you've been through a process of getting your licence at Knock Hill. I think the same week we raced there in the championship, wasn't it? The week after you did it.
Yeah, I was just a couple of days after we did the race. Yeah. So the thing with the ARDS test was that I was actually quite disappointed with it, because they essentially tell you, just go around the track. You're not supposed to go fast. You're just supposed to know that you know the racing line. You're not an idiot. So I just went in. I felt like I was doing an exam, even though it is an exam. But I just didn't feel like I learned anything from actually.
Couldn't actually enjoy it really.
Exactly.
The experience.
Yeah, it was just nerve-wracking more than anything. But that side of it's kind of put a bit of a bummer down on it, especially because like the night before I was testing a Honda Civic around Knock Hill just to see what I can do, really just to see how I'm gonna just show off here, and then they turn around and say, oh, if you put a wheel off the track, then we're going to fail you.
Right.
So you just like, oh, just get it done and get it out of the way and.
Yeah, and if I think back to Castle Coombe, wheels off the track is. It's not uncommon.
It's fully accepted, I should say. Especially if your name's Matt Daly.
Yeah. I think Matt did it 10 corners in a row at Coombe. Quite impressive. So, come to this weekend. Obviously, quite a long trip down for you, 9 hours, I think.
There was scheduled 7.5, 9 hours it was. So, got down on Thursday night. Was pretty tired.
Had a bit of luxury. hotel room.
A B&B. It wasn't quite full luxury, but
Still better than the van.
It was better than the van that I've been in all weekend, yeah. But I thought I'll get a decent night's sleep, which I didn't get a decent night's sleep because you're obviously too excited about everything. So
then you got a practice session on Friday afternoon.
Test, yeah.
So I know Paul did a couple of laps to shake the car down.
Uh-huh.
And how was the first stint out on the track?
Scary, very, very, very scary. I just never anticipated how real it would be. Like I don't know. I had nothing to expect really, but just the first time I slammed on the brakes going into the hairpin really spooked me. Just how much I got thrown forward with the G-force. I was just a road car. Come on, it can't be that bad. So it took a while to build up the confidence. Going around the corners was not too bad. I had the car moving quite early on, but the first session I just was scared to press the brake effectively and just wasn't getting the line right. And then second session was much better. I got told just slam on the brakes, just do it. Paul was really good with it, just taught me through everything to do. Just slam on the brakes, let the ABS do all the work, which on the sim I've turned ABS off, so it was quite alien to me.
But I know the purpose of Friday wasn't to set times, but I think he was within 3.5 seconds of the previous now championship leader.
Yeah, I think it's 27 was it 29?
You said the 27, I think it was.
27. So from the pace of the weekend and what Andrew had done the couple of sessions before, it was that one session only a few seconds off, which and a long circuit like this sometimes seasons regulars at that point as well. So it was sort of not unexpected, but also actually really impressive.
Yeah.
Because the first session it was literally just 3 laps of Colin getting the feel of what the car was. There was touring cars out there. There was top range Ginetta things that are insanely fast in comparison. So you had to avoid those and everything. But got a couple of laps.
Nick Hamilton gone past you in a touring car was pretty an eye opener as well. So.
But it was. I thought it was to do a 27. Straight out within sort of 5 or 6 laps. As I said, not based on the sim that we've seen. Not overly surprising, but still actually mega.
Yeah.
As I said, there's some people that they could race for 10 years and not quite get there. So that was really good. That was an impressive start.
So obviously you ended Friday with a big smile on your face.
Yeah.
And then Saturday morning didn't go quite so well, did it?
No, it was. I just misjudged everything. I just got told, right, just do 3 laps, come in, get the SD card for the V-Box so that I can compare my times. But I think I got carried away. I did an extra lap. But every time I went to do a lap, I caught up Andy, who was also new to the series this week. New to driving front wheel drive cars and everything like that, and every time I'd drop back to do my quali lap, I'd catch him by the end of it, so I'd back off again, and by the time I came into the pits, got my SD card in my V-Box, my outlap, the checkered flag was out, so I didn't get a full representative lap in there, so it kind of bummed me down a bit because I really thought I could be competitive with everybody up front, and then only being last but one only because someone's brakes failed, it set me down a wee bit.
But then you're going to be on the grid. You could do competitive lap times from the day before. Qualifying times don't really matter once you're on the grid. And then race 1 was
a bit of a damp squib.
Eventful and uneventful at the same time.
Yeah, it was. Well, as I shared on the social media, Colin had the fastest lap for 90% of the race because at the end of the first lap, the safety car came out.
And by the end of the race, I think we worked out that his entire career, he'd averaged overtaking 1.5 cars per lap.
Absolutely, which is
2 on lap 1 and 1 on the last lap.
Very, very impressive indeed. Yeah.
So for those of you who didn't follow the race, it was a couple of weeks ago now that we had a big incident on lap 1. 2 of Paul's cars involved. We'll post some pictures alongside the podcast, but fairly seriously damaged, and then pretty much the whole of the race run behind the safety car, just allowed to race for 1 lap So obviously Colin overtook the 2 crash cars on the opening lap, and then managed to overtake Andy on the last lap. So that must have given you a little bit of confidence, knowing that you could find a way past.
Yeah, absolutely. Going back to quali, I probably should have just done it straight away and just dived down. Just tried to go past in quali early on, but I didn't want to be disrespectful, and I wanted to let him do his time as well. So I thought, I'll drop back for enough.
That's the sim racer coming out of you, that is.
Why? But then when the race situation is right, I'm going past you whether you like it or not. So I was just, if I just done that in quali, I probably would have been happy with my quali performance. But just to go overtake, not finish last. I wanted to be able to race with someone else as well, like just have a wee bit of a dash. But obviously, just being able to overtake in one lap, it gave me a lot of confidence going into the next day.
And as I pointed out to you on Facebook, overtaking him meant that you missed out on pole for the reverse grid race.
I sclaffed it again.
Race 2 was completely different though. Talk us through that.
Well, because it was a reverse grid, it meant I was starting on second, which waking up and your legs just constantly shaking because you just don't know how it's going to go.
All the cars behind you.
All the cars behind me, just loads of angry men and women just wanting to get you out of the way.
Now you know how I feel.
So it was a bit different. But it's just because I'd really made a bad start on race 1, I tried to make sure that I didn't stuff it up again.
Yeah, we reviewed that, didn't we, last night? We reviewed your first lap, and it was...
Took the mick, and...
Took the mick, of course, yeah. Everyone else was almost finished lap 1 by the time you left.
Yeah, I decided to go for a coffee as the man put the flag up. So I learned from that, and it wasn't a bad start, but compared to like the 4Ds and stuff, they were just... He was all right. We were 3 wide going into turn 1, which in the sim you don't really mind so much, but when you can feel the cars and stuff
in someone else's real car,
it felt really, really, really close. Like we're in the sim, like you can just turn your head round because you're not restrained by a hands or anything like that. And you just you're there, and you can the gap looks all right, but in that you're strapped in, you can't really see very much, and it felt like we were actually touching at one point and going in, and then I was just right, and I just thought 4 days off, let him go, I'll just have to try and get past Andy, and luckily Andy braked it a little bit earlier. I turned in slightly because I knew Ford had to go somewhere, and then after that it was just a case of holding on, and I think for the first couple of laps I was right behind him. I was actually holding on.
Yeah, you did very well.
And then the other Ford came through and disappeared.
It must be depressing in an Alfa Romeo race to be overtaken by 2 Fords.
You're going to leave that in the podcast as
well? Absolutely. He's been thinking about that whenever since he mentioned about a podcast.
That's Richard and James, for those of you who don't follow the series.
I couldn't tell which one was what. I kept getting mixed up, so that's why it was 41, 42.
But from then on, we had 2 former, or 1 current and 1 former AROC virtual racers pretty much glued together for the rest of the race with you and Tom Billingsley.
Yeah, that was brilliant. I was just that was everything I expected. I hoped it would be. I didn't expect to be racing with someone that close for that long, and just fighting him off for a couple of laps. Then I made a mistake somewhere, and he got alongside. I think he was going into the hairpin, and then I thought, right, that's it. I'm in 4th. Was quite clear behind me, so I just need to stay on his tail. And then going through Brundle, he got it a bit loose, going into Nelson, he ran a bit wide, and then I was just like, oh, here we go, I can actually overtake somebody, yeah. So I just bombed down the inside, going into the bump hole, and it stuck, and I couldn't believe it, and I was just absolutely buzzing after that. And but then John's just experienced. He gave me a little tap after that just to remind me he was there.
But I think 2 or 3 laps in a row, he tried to get alongside you up to the first hairpin and didn't quite have it. And the time he got through, I saw you both come out of turn 1, and he was a lot closer. He was probably going to have it. Yeah. What I wasn't expecting was you to try and take him around the outside at Palmer.
Yeah, well, I kind of knew that he was going to go, so I just brake deep into the hairpin. Like, well, what I would do in the sim, get the cut back, and then I just thought, oh, I'm actually gaining on him here. I've got a chance of going round. This might look good.
It did look good.
So I'm going to just hang this out and see what happens. And I think I was actually ahead at one point, but because the next corner was a left-hand hairpin, I had to give that up. So that was that. All weekend I've loved Palmer Corner. It was so much fun going in, just throwing the car in, and I don't know if it's just the nature of the corner or how the car was set up, but you could floor it early and the car just rotated so nicely. It was just brilliant. So that's why I had the confidence to try and go round the outside in that corner.
You mean the cheek? Not the confidence, the cheek. The sim racer in his first couple of races trying to get around the outside.
I'm sure that's what John said.
I suspect knowing John, it wasn't that polite actually, but that's what he meant for sure.
Afterwards.
But yeah, it was a really, really, really good battle. And then I felt the tyre start to go a little bit. I was maybe pushing a wee bit too hard, so John started to pull away a little bit. And then just the last lap, I just calmed myself down a bit, settled for where I was, and then all of a sudden I saw I was 3/10 up coming out the hairpin. Here we go. So I just kept going, and then I was just catching John as it was coming on, and then through Coram I was right on his tail, and I really thought, I'm going to just go for this. And then I really bottled out of it, because it's not really the place where you put a dive bomb in, because if somebody sees it, they've got you coming out on the other side anyway. So I just settled behind him and did my fastest lap on the last lap. So
you didn't think of taking the Scott Austin line across the course?
No, I don't. I didn't have the rear wheel drive to be able to manage that as effectively.
It's worth noting that actual last lap was the second fastest lap in the class.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
All right, okay.
Which is mega, absolutely mega.
That's crazy, yeah.
It's I checked. It was Richard was the quickest with a 23.4, then you with a 24.0, and James Ford with a 24.4, I think it was.
Oh wow, right, okay.
Comfortably ahead of the third fastest.
So real mega solid second fastest lap.
Wow. Yeah, that's
hell of an achievement. And to be fair, the car itself was not the freshest car. It does a lot of mileage. It gets used by a lot of people.
As soon as I saw the picture of it, I fell in love with it. It's just blue's my favourite colour. It's just being a Scotsman, blue. I just like, saw my name on it, number 41. It's just, I thought, that's perfect. And as soon as I came down, saw it in the flesh, it was brilliant.
So we've got 60 odd people now who've raced in the series since we started, or various series since we started. Just for the benefit of the competitors, what would you say were the best, the most transferable skills from sim racing, and what was completely different?
Being able to do it in the sim, knowing the lines, having an idea of where the braking points should be on the sim. Obviously, when you're strapped to a seat and as soon as you put the brake on and you get thrown forward that you're not expecting, then it kind of puts the spooks on you. But just having that experience and knowing where the lines are, getting how to take the corners, that's probably the transferable part. But it's a really different feeling, because if you've got force feedback on a sim, you're basically just waiting on the wheel telling you what to do. Whereas on the actual racetrack, you actually feel it before anything happens on the steering wheel, and it's a really weird sensation going from one to the other. So it is a little bit different, but it's definitely, if you love sim racing, this is just mega.
I mean, it's been interesting, Paul. We've seen people go from real racing into the sim.
Yep.
And some of them, like Matt, have just taken to it like a duck to water. Yeah. And other people have struggled. And there's a couple of people, decent drivers like Richard Thurbin, have come and had a go at sim racing and just not got it.
I think it's as Colin describes, the sensation. So I was, when I first started, it was similar. I had the screens, and I, just a steering wheel and a seat that John actually gave me, which is very kind of him. And it was reacting to what your eyes are seeing on the screen, not the sensation of what the car's doing. And when you're on a car and everything's working smoothly, whether it's a top of the range touring car or a Citroen C1 or the cars that we race, when you're doing the perfect laps and you're at one with the car feels like it's dancing and you're reacting to what the car's doing and what the tyres are actually feeling like, not necessarily what your eyes are doing. You feel it in your inner senses before things happen. And I struggled initially, as I said in the last podcast, that I was reacting to everything too late because I wasn't having the sensation. It was just purely with what my eyes were doing. And it took a while to get used to that, and actually putting on the VR headset so it felt more like in the car. I immediately improved dramatically, but there's still that element of being able to sort of balance the slide as you go through the car, because you're not feeling the yaw within your own body and being able to control things. So I think it's harder actually to go from doing the racing into a sim, but what the sim is brilliant training for. And to be honest, we only saw half a lap of what Colin did yesterday, and that one half a lap, I think you missed one apex, didn't you? We joked yesterday. We said you missed one apex by I don't know, a few inches, but it was not, another opportunity to take the mickey. But in the half lap that the recording system worked, for someone who had done 6 or 7 laps, the racing line was absolutely impeccable. Usually it's one of the things we have to work on when we get new people and coach them through how to apply the brakes, not to turn in too early, to actually get their apexes. But the 3 or 4 corners that it did, it looked like somebody who had done an awful lot of racing, and it was good, and it looked quick, it was smooth, and that was straight out the box. And that has got to be down to the sim racing and the experience that Colin's gained over all these years. And I think it proved that someone who does do a lot of sim racing and gets to a standard like Colin's sort of standard, and we've seen it elsewhere in the motorsport world, that is transferable. Once they can adapt to the fact that actually you've got more inputs and senses and you've got more feel for the car, that they can be quick. And the fact that it's not even the second race really, it's your first race, because the first race was a washout. First race you got the second fastest lap against guys who have been doing it for 10 years.
And
astounding.
A few tenths off a podium.
Yeah,
a class podium.
It was. John was going past and he was flashing the lights at Colin, and down the straight he was, tapping him in the back, saying "Get out of the way." And we thought, Colin might hold him for a podium here in the first one, it would have been dreamland. It would have been amazing.
Absolutely.
But unfortunately, just the experience of John come through, and you had your good battle, and it didn't quite work out. But still, it's second fastest lap, mega consolation prize.
The fact that I got to overtake him, it's just put a big smile on my face. I thought he was just going to disappear after that, but the fact that I was able to hold on and...
Did he ever overtake you in the sim?
He did.
Did he?
I'm sure he did.
You can say you've never overtaken me in the sim, but I overtaken you on
he
the
will
racetrack.
always say that I always punted him out, but that's why he gave me the tap.
So, as we were getting ready to record, there was a bit of a conversation about brands. So, is this potentially not your last real race?
I don't want it to be, but obviously funding's going to be a major issue. So if there is any rich benefactor out there that wants to sponsor some random sim racer to do
Random Scotsman?
Yeah, sponsor a random Scotsman, then I'm all for it. But I'll just have to see what happens. So money for me is quite tight at the minute, so I would absolutely love to do it again.
But, and I presume you'd be happy to have him in a car again.
Yeah, absolutely. It's, Colin's come away, he's not put the car upside down. He's not actually damaged the car at all.
Don't know yet.
Been brilliant, been great to have around in the evening, having a beer and helping with the barbecue and everything. It's been a really pleasurable experience, and it's, the outcome of what we wanted to achieve a year ago when the idea was conceived, almost couldn't have actually gone any more perfect, really. And the whole thing, it's been terrific. So if Colin can do something, we might be able to do something as well, and if we can meet in the middle, then hopefully get more opportunities, which would be brilliant.
Yeah.
If the others hear this before brands, they might not agree, but we'll see what we can do.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, gentlemen. It's been a good weekend.
It's been superb. Well done, Colin.
Absolutely.
Congratulations.
Thank you
very much.
Thank you.
Well, I hope you enjoyed our first outside broadcast podcast, not least because we've just recorded our second one. If you'd like to find out more about Colin's road to the racetrack and see some photos of him in action, there'll be a feature in the next issue of Alfa Romeo Driver, due out in mid-August. Possibly about the same time he's taken to the track again at Festival Italia at Brands Hatch. And in the next episode, we move from Snetterton to Silverstone, where I sat down with historic racer Jeff Gordon. Those of you who were at National Alpha Day may have heard the roar of his sensational Giulietta, but this time he was racing his Group 2 Alfa Sud Sprint. Episode 38 will also be out the weekend of Festival Italia, available to download from the club website, iTunes, YouTube, Google Podcasts and all other good podcast sources from 1:30 p.m. on Sunday the 15th of August. Until then, stay safe.